What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Odd Shopper channel. Today, we're talking some college basketball. It is March the 19th. That is Tuesday. First four playing games begin today. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. And we have a very special offer from Bet365 available for a limited time in Kentucky, Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, Colorado, Louisiana, Indiana, Arizona, and North Carolina. If I just said your state, you're going to want to take advantage of this offer. You'll click the link below, make your first deposit, make a $5 wager on any team, total, market, whatever you want. Whether that bet wins or loses, you are getting $150 in the form of bonus bets. $150 in your bankroll you didn't have that you can use for March Madness, these playing games, whatever you want, even the NIT, something else, NBA, doesn't matter. You'll have that and you can use it. You need to be 21 or older to play, 18 in Kentucky. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER, but just flat out no brainer. And they're offering it to you in those states right now. All right, so we have playing games tonight. There's a pair of games. We're going to talk about both of those as well as a couple NIT games, that might be a little under the radar that I think there's some edges we can potentially take advantage of. So we'll bring you behind the glass. We'll talk about the marquee playing game, if you will. First and foremost, it's Colorado State taking on Virginia. We have a 2.5-point spread available in the market in favor of Colorado State. That's the side I prefer. Colorado State, very underseeded. Mountain West, a little bit disrespected as a whole in the market. And I get it. New Mexico wins the tournament. Some of these teams get pushed down. They get the auto bid. It is what it is. But Colorado State, they face Virginia, a team I largely just don't think should be here when you look at their metrics. They're outside the top 70 in most major efficiency metrics. And overall, including places like KenPom, Torvik, it's been kind of a mess for Virginia this year. And the big problem with their team is they can't score. They play super slow, so that adds volatility to their games, and Colorado State certainly will accommodate that. They're 268th in pace themselves, whereas Virginia is just dead last. But the scoring woes for this team, it's going to be tough to overcome this, and that's been the case in a lot of their matchups. I know they got kind of upset in their conference tournament with the buzzer beater to go to OT, and then they end up losing. But just severe disadvantages scoring across the board against an electric Colorado State team. Offensively, Colorado State's 49th, Virginia's 190th. Effective field goal percentage, it's 32 to 246. Just horrible, horrible shooting on this Virginia side. The only thing they really do well is shoot the three, where they're 46 in three-point percentage. Unfortunately, their three-point rate is 293rd. This is adjusted for pace. This team's just not shooting a lot of threes, even though they're doing a decent job of hitting them. And that's a big advantage for them in this matchup, where Colorado State ranks 183 in three-point defense. Instead, they've tried to score inside. That's been a point of strength for Colorado State. So I'm not sure if Virginia's even playing the most efficient basketball considering their roster for this matchup. And then Colorado State, pretty solid across the board. Team is 9th in scoring in the interior. They do play with a smaller lineup. They're 318th in height, effective height. That's just the overall cumulative height of your roster and the minutes they play. It's a ratio. Virginia's 107th, but I'm still not buying the players that actually encompass this Virginia front court. When you look at some of the names and the bodies that play inside, it's kind of been a revolving door for them, and I'm not sure it's getting any better. Recently, they've had Jake Groves in and out of the starting lineup. He's 6'9". He largely plays the 4, and then the minutes at the 5 have been split between Jordan Minor at 6'8", and at 6'11", their freshman who's been good in spurts, and then Ryan Dunn at 6'8". He's their 6'8" sophomore. It's a tough spot for this Virginia team overall, just looking at their roster. And even when you see this height number, the height metrics for Colorado State, it's kind of imbalanced. This team's actually not that small. They just play a small 5-man. You look at their small forward, Neat Clifford, the Colorado transfer, he's 6'6". Patrick Cartier, who plays their 4 most of the time, he's 6'8". It's just Joel Scott at the 5, who's 6'7", and Rashawn Memba when he comes in. He's about a 10-minute per game player at 6'7" as well. They just don't have a tall 5-man. But when you look at the Virginia roster, most of the time they're not playing a tall 5-man either. Over their last 10 games, You're looking at Jordan Minor, 44% of the minutes at the 5. He's 6'8". Ryan Dunn, 19% at 6'8" as well. Blake Buchanan, their 6'11" forward. He's only received 36% of the minutes at this position. Maybe he sees a slight uptick in this game. But Virginia's not the tallest lineup either. So I'm not sure the height advantages really work in Virginia's direction. And then just across the board, resumes are quite different for these two teams. Virginia's dropped games repeatedly, and it hasn't been great down the stretch. Of course, they had the OT loss to NC State on the buzzer beater, and then they get kind of run out of the gym in OT, got clobbered by Duke, clobbered by North Carolina, demolished by Virginia Tech, and demolished by Pitt. That was all in their last 7 games to finish the regular season. And a lot of those games just with horrific scoring. They went on a 3-game stretch where they didn't score over 50 points. In that stretch, it was actually 4 of 5 games where they didn't score 50 points. If they don't score 50 points against Colorado State, even probably like 60, this team is absolutely cooked. And Colorado State, a team, despite playing fairly slow themselves, hyper efficient on offense, and they can really rack up points. Outside of their New Mexico loss, they've been over 70 points in 5 straight games to close the season. Some of those coming against slower teams themselves. So I think Colorado State is the sharp side. This is moving through 2.5. Expected to close around 3.5 when it is all said and done. Next up, we'll head to our second play-in game. This one is about as greasy as they come. We have Wagner taking on Howard. So I'll kind of just break down these two teams first and foremost, tell you who they are, where they've been. We'll start with the Wagner side. This team is the representative from the Northeast Conference. They were actually the 6th seed in this conference, so we're getting far from the best team from the Northeast in this tournament. They beat Sacred Heart, Central Connecticut, and Merrimack to get here. And this team actually ranks 292 overall in power rankings. Again, would have much rather had Merrimack, who's 216, or Central Connecticut at 275. But their road to get here was a little easier than it should have been. Merrimack's best player, Jordan Derkak, was banged up in their conference tournament in that game. Their resume is pretty bad for this team. Played 2 quad 1 games, lost them both, went 3-3 in quad 3. So it's basically a resume comprised of 1 top 200 win all year. It was against Stony Brook. Outside of that, they've been absolutely demolished against any real good competition. And some of their good games, like they had some decent competition early in the season. Fordham, they lost in overtime to, got demolished by Seton Hall and Providence, and then had some of their single-digit losses were egregious, like Long Island at 344. What I'll say about their non-conference is they were healthier at that time. So like a Fordham loss in OT, I think we need to look more closely at the recent losses to like Fairleigh Dickinson, Lemoyne, Sacred Heart, Stonehill, teams that rank outside the top 300, because this team has sustained just an immense amount of injuries. Zaire Williams, Raheem Moore, just to name a couple. They have 7 scholarship players on their roster right now, and it shows up. The gap in talent here is going to be massive. These are a lot of just players that were recruited by this team. And when you look at Howard, they're comprised much differently. This team is actually very talented. They hit the portal much harder. For reference, Seth Towns, he's the 2nd player in this conference. He's an Ohio State transfer. You have Isaiah Warfield from Liberty, Marcus Dockery from Maryland, Dom Campbell from Notre Dame. Like legitimate Power 6 players in this conference, or in the Power 6 conferences, have come to Howard to play. They've also been injured throughout the year. For reference, Howard has played kind of the same schedule that we see for Wagner. They were the 4th seed in the MEAC. They had to beat Norfolk State to get here, but then they got kind of lucky playing Delaware State. But otherwise, this team has played close games against some pretty decent competition. They lost to Georgia Tech by 3, Bryant by 6, played Cincinnati fairly close, and a single-digit loss to Yale. Those are all top 100 teams. Rutgers, they got blown out, and Bryant's 173, so I'll correct that. Howard has 1 top 200 win themselves, but this team has also had immense injuries. Seth Towns has missed 3 games. Shai Odom has missed 15 games. Isaiah Warfield, 11 games. And then you go all the way down. Dom Campbell, another 6 games. Now, Shai Odom and Dom Campbell have been banged up. I think they're both going to play in this game. It seems like some of their absences recently were precautionary, hoping they got to the tournament. So there's tentative optimism they'll play. But even if they don't, I mean, having Seth Towns, an Ohio State transfer, Warfield, a Liberty transfer, Dockery, a Maryland transfer, the talent is just way, way better. And then as far as the profile for these two teams, they're built completely different. This Howard team doesn't play defense. This Wagner team doesn't play any offense. And generally speaking, you get more volatility with the teams that are better on defense, but Howard's actually pretty good shooting the ball. Individually, you look at some of these players on their team, they're 106th in effective field goal percentage. They're 19th in three-point percentage. Just individually, you have electric shooters for this Howard team. For reference, Seth Towns, 33.5%. That's about as bad as it gets for this team. Bryce Harris is at 37.5%. Warfield's at 35%. Dockery's at 42%. Hairston's at 40%. That's two players on this team that shoot 40% from three, and then you've got another nearly at 39%. These are pretty good shooters for a team in this conference, and I think you're buying low on a team that has the all year. So Howard -3.5 will be the side we look to in this game. Let's get to some of our greasier games as we head to the NIT. We have Boston College taking on Providence. This is an injury game. It makes sense. Teams aren't playing for really anything outside of getting extra coaching experience, extra player experience. And some of these guys are seniors. They want to play their last games. Rick Pitino, I don't know what you're doing. Same thing with you, Penny Hardaway. Let your kids play. Let your coaches coach. Enough of that. Providence won't have their best player, Devin Carter, in this game. They also won't have Rich Barron. So immediately, just significantly weakened. You could make an argument Devin Carter is the most valuable player to any team in the Big East, and I would listen to it. Without him, I just don't know how they score. 116th in offensive efficiency with him on the floor, 20th in defense. He's a big reason why this defensive number is so high. You're basically going to rely on Josh Oduro against Quentin Post on the inside. And I trust the bodies for Boston College a little more than Providence at this point. For reference, like I was doing player projections for this game, and I'm having a hard time finding just full minutes for Providence at this point, given the injuries. Post is awesome for a big man who's 7 feet tall. He shoots 44% from three. Jaden Zachary's at 41%. Mason Madsen's at 39%. Even Donald Hand's at like 36. Claudel Harris is at 36. This BC team can really shoot it on you. And then with Providence not having Devin Carter in the fold, extremely worried about their three-point defense that ranked 202 with him on the floor. So now you're at a height disadvantage. That was already the case, even with Oduro, BC 65, Providence 179. And this three-point weakness, Boston College, I think, should be favored in this spot, and you can just flat out find them as a dog. So speaking to that a little bit, I'm going to prove to you there's a 3.5 still available. We'll bring you to the odds screen from OddsShopper, kind of show you what we're working with here. There are 3.5s in the market still out there. So this Boston College right now, as you can see on the screen, I'm just pulling up BC plus 3.5. You can find -109 at Bet Rivers. You can find -120 at Bet MGM. I realize not all these are available to you guys. And DraftKings still hanging a plus 3.5 as well. So this is OddsShopper. This is our live odds screen where you can sort by state. If you live in any legal state, this will show you the books available to you. You can sort by book if you only plan a couple of them. And right now we're running just the deal of a lifetime. The link is below. The promo code is MADNESS. It's $1 for the first week. And this ends on Thursday when the games tip off. So you need to do this before Thursday. But what it gives you, you have access to this live odds screen. You have access to all our tools, which take a market-based approach and show you the plus EV bets that you can find for the day. And it's not just college basketball. This is back-tested, and you can look at some of the winning records that our players have using these tools. Greg Ehrenberg, one of our analysts, has been awesome about showing the results. And there's also the Discord. It's all now included in one package. Again, you can get this for $1 this week only with the promo code MADNESS. I'm in the Discord talking college basketball. Ben's in there as well. So even if you just want to ask questions, chop it up, see why we're using these tools, how we're using them, and get the analysis, it's all available to you with the link below using that promo code MADNESS. All right, we'll bring you back to our main screen with the teams, and we'll get to our last game, which is another NIT contest, but it's a fun one. We have Xavier taking on Georgia. This one we're looking at an under, so I think injuries will probably play a factor in this game as well. Jabri Abdur-Rahim has been out for Georgia. Xavier is just a walking wounded team right now, and they kind of came into the season like this. Their two best players didn't suit up this year, Fremantle and Hunter. Since then, they have lost Dalen Swain. He had an appendectomy. And Sachi Siani, he's been out. He's a rotational big for this team. So you're just dealing with weakness across the board, injury across the board for both these teams. And it's the NIT. Don't be surprised if you see a team scratched. The problem with an under is pacing. Xavier's really fast, 32. That hasn't changed. But Georgia has changed somewhat. 121. They've actually dropped outside the top 160 in pace since conference play in the last 6 weeks. So you're looking at a Georgia team that does play slower, at least of late. Some of this probably has to do with injury, to be honest with you. And then from there, you don't have the most efficient offenses. First of all, both teams are better on defense. Xavier's 54th. Georgia is 64th. Then what a lot of these teams do well doesn't actually come down to their shooting. Their offensive efficiency a lot of times comes from putbacks or turnovers. Shooting. Xavier's 254 in effective field goal. Georgia's 224. And then both these teams are awesome on defense, both from 3 and on the interior. Awesome's probably a stretch, but 2 top 150 units, they're pretty good. Both teams don't shoot well from 3. 174 is Xavier. Georgia is 194. Both teams are kind of comprised through better guard play, don't have much of a front court. So you have the strength of both of these rosters neutralizing each other. Xavier has awesome guards with Olivari, McKnight, Claude, but Georgia has depth with their guard positions. They're getting good minutes out of players like Hill and Blue Kane. It's going to be tough for Xavier to score points in this game. Same thing on the Georgia side. So we'll back an under here. Otherwise, that'll do it for today's games. Tomorrow, we're back talking the 2 play-in games, and then we'll be full speed ahead for March Madness. Myself and Ben Raza broke down the whole bracket on this very channel. If you'd like that, if you have questions, I'm in the Discord. Also on Twitter, at Matt_Gajewski. Busy time of year, but I'll get to as many DMs as I can. They're open. And yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Good luck.